Okay, here we go again with another Break It Down for Brackens podcast. Today we have Julie Philabaum. Julie's going to come on and talk about some town stuff. But first, kicking it off, do we have an announcement you want to kind of break down for us?
Yeah, I'm running for city council in Ward 3 because that's where I live. But anybody in the town can vote for me, and I will hopefully serve everyone in the town.
So all of the wards vote for everybody running?
Yeah, everyone votes for everyone that's running, but you can only run for where you live.
So there's a limit on how many people can run in one ward?
Right now, there's just one seat open in Ward 3, and in Ward 2, and in Ward 1. And it's usually once every 4 years, and they stagger. So like every 2 years, we have an election for one seat in that ward, and there's 2 seats in each ward. But right now, because of some change-ups we've had in the last 2 years, the mayor's seat will be, the mayor's going to be running on a 4-year term. And then in Ward 4, we have one seat that's a 4-year term and one seat that's going to be on the ballot that's only a 2-year term.
Did somebody resign?
Yes.
Who's that?
Our former mayor resigned, and then...
Wait, he's been gone for a while.
That was 2 years ago.
That was only 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, then I guess thank you for explaining that. I guess the next question I have is why? Like, why in the world do you want to be on city council?
The short answer is I love Charlestown. This is just an amazing area, amazing group of people that live here, and the downtown area is so incredibly charming. Like, how could you not love living here? There are a lot of things that I've noticed around town that I think need to be fixed, that need to be addressed, and I've definitely stepped up by joining a couple of local government boards as well as just nonprofit boards to make those things happen. But I think being on city council will really help move us in a more positive direction. I have a lot of enthusiasm and energy that I think is currently lacking.
Okay, so from a previous podcast we were on and from other conversations, you were kind of boots on the ground, though. You were walking your kids around town. Mm-hmm. You lived here for years, and you explained earlier how you just started to kind of make a mental list of, hey, why is this way? It should be this way. Or you even mentioned that there's no trees on Liberty Street. Right. I've lived here for a while. I never noticed that there's no trees.
Well, not on all of Liberty, just the section between, like, behind the library and like the courthouse and everything.
Right.
And they also have a lot of flooding in that area because you don't have trees that are would help absorb some of that excess water. So
wow, that's really boots on the ground. That's what I was kind of making an exaggeration, but you've paid so much attention. I definitely could not identify which road has what trees or anything like that. But I guess because you've been out walking the kids around and active in the town, you kind of have seen things.
Well, that's where it started, was just noticing things from walking to the different parks, to the farmer's market, to the library, all of the different areas in town. And then joining the tree board, joining the parks board, and just being that much more involved. Then you have even, as part of my job as being on those boards, even though I don't get paid, but it is my job to do it. I take it very seriously to get all that information and see, okay, what else can we do that's going to make a positive influence and impact on the people that live here. That's definitely my goal. I don't know. That's all that I want to do, is just make it better for everyone that lives here.
I can imagine you've had a little bit of or probably quite a bit of experience, though, working with city government and city council, because of the boards that you're on. Do you find that the systems or the processes are easy to work in or difficult to work in, or just something to get used to? Well,
it's interesting because all 3 of the boards that I'm on function completely differently. The Parks Board really relies on city staff to get things done. We just come up with ideas, or we say yes or no when city staff presents us with stuff. But it's really, on them to do it. Where on the tree board, it's really more board member driven. We're the ones pushing things, and then the city staff just kind of is okay, checks the box and then we can do what we want to do.
Okay.
So.
Well, good. So, as part of a series of podcasts, we're going to talk about particular concerns that either you have or the city has, and how you kind of interpret it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean,
So what do you want to start with? Like, I know what it is, but I want you to say it.
accessibility
Okay.
is, I think, and there's obviously lots of ways that accessibility is interpreted. There's lots of issues around this one little word, but there's, how to make the local government more accessible to the people, so that way there's more transparency and more people can participate, because I think that's very important.
Julie, that is so loaded. So my plan for this podcast, and to be transparent, we talked about what would be a good kind of content, and she brought up accessibility, and I realized how little I knew about accessibility. I still don't totally understand how that word is used when it's in reference to a city. So what you just said was so loaded with smart things. We need to really break it down for Brackens, okay? So where would you start when you want me to understand the 3 or 4 components of accessibility?
Right. So I think our government has made some efforts to be more transparent. There is a lot of information that you can find on the city's website, but I do think that there are some areas where we can make some more improvements to be more accessible, especially to those who are visually impaired or hearing impaired, adding simple image descriptors on images for the visually impaired, and for hearing impaired to add automatic captions or subtitles if it's like a pre-planned
So
video.
are you saying in reference to a website?
To the city's website. I mean, you can get all of the meetings, well, not all of them, but most of the meetings are streamed. And of course, all the meetings are public, so you can get access if you request it.
I love how you're saying, like, we all know that. So just so you know, there's the meetings, which meetings? The city council meetings or the board meetings? Or what?
Yes, all of them.
So they're all streamed, or there are available minutes. So once they're posted, and they're posted on the city's website?
Yes.
So even the tree board's minutes are posted on the website? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so my wife's on the tree board, so I hear the calls. I hear the Zoom happening, but I didn't know that it's actually kind of not scripted, but broken down into what was discussed.
Yeah, I mean, minutes they're not a transcript.
Right.
So for me, before I joined the Parks Board, I read all of the minutes that were on the city's website, which was like the last 5 years. And
That's heavy.
Yeah, I mean.
Sure, it's good research.
I'm prepared. But I didn't know exactly who said what. It was just sort of like, the minutes are kind of generalized, that there was a discussion about playground equipment, and it was tabled until the next meeting. And then maybe it was never brought up again. But so I don't really know. I was like, well, what was the discussion? What, were we talking about colors? What exactly was said? That, to me, I think that's just more information that should be out there. And having captions added. And I also think that they're working on better streaming equipment or software to make the city.
You know what? Let me comment on that real quick. That way it's me saying it. I've watched a few of the live, I guess, and that's what you mean by streaming, kind of the meeting, especially when things were hot like 1.5 years ago. And hey, whoever's in charge of that, you got to work something out, because once you can't hear anything, whether it's the people watching and the microphone or the people on city council actually speaking, without doing true sound checks, and trust me, I know, I'm going to tune out. Especially when it's buffering or there's not enough. I don't even know what the problems are down there when it comes to watching these meetings live, but you'd think there should be some less buffering and better sound. If Kevin Brackens, frankly, can figure out a podcast, now granted we're like 60 some odd in, so I figured out. I fail almost every podcast, by the way, but I'm self-taught, and this sounds better than a government meeting. And maybe they don't want us to hear what they're saying.
Well, they should.
Okay. Whoa. Okay. Yeah, don't let me get on a rant here.
I mean, I think that's just very important, and I think investing in the better equipment and better software would go a long way. And then also having the ability to make automatic captioning, which is not perfect. Those things.
So you're saying it could be captioned on the screen during streaming?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
really cool.
Facebook will automatically do that for you if you check the box. So doing it on Facebook is actually pretty easy. I've done it, and sometimes after the live, I'll go back and I'll be like, okay, it thought I said something crazy, and I'm like, that's not what I said, and I just fix it real fast.
That's good. So you're saying that there's moderately easy fixes to that?
Yeah, I think honestly it's important, but I don't imagine it would be too expensive. This is not $1 million project, This is not going to increase our taxes by any means.
These microphones and these microphone holders and this little box right here, I think we're at like $450. Mm-hmm. And then the software I use to produce this, even though it's not that awesome sometimes, I think I spend $200 a year on that.
Oh, okay.
That's not bad.
No.
It's not super expensive.
Right.
But that would improve if somebody who was hearing impaired could see the words scrolling across. That would be more accessibility.
Right, because that person in normal times might be able to go to the meetings, sit down and lip read and have a better understanding, or request that a interpreter be there to sign for them. But with the way that things are right now, and hopefully this will not be forever, hopefully this will only be a couple more months or year or however long, we'll go back to normal. But I think it's still important to have it more accessible right now.
And I guess for somebody who's sight impaired, having better audio would fix that.
Yes, that as well. I've been watching it on my phone and having my phone like right up against my ear, and I'm like, I can't. What did they say?
Look, if you've tried, here's the deal. If you haven't learned from curbside pickup being the best thing in the world yet, I think watching, if you were even interested in what's happening at a city council meeting, watching it on a Zoom or on a video is way better than taking the time to go down there and look at it and that sort of thing. Okay, cool. So from the sake of hearing impaired, AV systems, and sight impaired, that's kind of some things you want to work on.
Right. I think a little bit of work will go a long way on those. Not super crazy.
Are they aware that they have sound issues?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. And I've been told some of those things are being worked on right now. Hopefully
things take forever, people. Mm-hmm. Takes forever. But, all right, cool. Don't let me interrupt you too much.
But I think there are other things in regards to accessibility outside of just the government, but to the town in general. Specifically to downtown, I think signage, wayfinding signs, because so many people...
What's a wayfinding sign?
Just saying, this is here, parking's here. Parking, people are like, there's no parking in downtown. You know that there's parking in downtown. There's like 3 different parking lots, and then there's all the parallel parking, which I know not everybody's comfortable with doing, but there is parking downtown, but people don't know it's there. So that's why we need the signs to say parking is here. We also need signs to show that we have businesses in downtown. Say like, these are the restaurants. These are
down by the Arby's or by the McDonald's that say,
keep on going, keep driving down Washington
Thai
Street.
food downtown, barbecue downtown, grandma's downtown.
Yeah.
Nice. Sorry if I forgot anybody. But, okay.
Yeah. So that's part of accessibility. Also, you mentioned curbside. This is something that obviously our downtown businesses, the city allowed for this to happen because of the pandemic. But all the big box stores had been doing this already before the pandemic and are going to continue to doing this drive up pickup, forever, I'm sure, because it makes it so much easier for a customer to shop there if they just drive up and pick up their order online, and especially for our restaurants to do carry out. You don't want to do carry out on a business that's on the main drag where you have to park 2 blocks away and then walk over to get your food and then walk back. If you can just have that parking spot that's like 15 minutes or less to get in and get out, I think that's accessibility to our businesses.
So they have some of those temporarily set up, but you're talking about making it maybe more of a permanent solution.
I think that would be very helpful to our businesses.
That's sharp. Okay.
Yeah.
That's definitely accessibility.
Yes. And then, of course, there's the sidewalks,
Uh-huh.
which I think is one of the biggest parts of this and will require some major moving and shaking to get it done.
Well, let me complain about those for a second.
Yes.
And I don't like to complain too hard unless I have a solution. But there becomes a complaint that turns into a pain point. So, as most people know, I'm one of the founders of the Bros and Bras social and fitness clubs, and we run and we walk, okay? And I recently put a post on our social media page saying, I'm just curious, here's a poll. Check if you've fallen once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, or 5 times or more. And I wanted to see what the 400 or so people in the group were going to say. And we had 75 people answer. I don't have the stats in front of me because I realized my data was tainted a little bit. But we've had a number of serious falls on the sidewalks that the most popular number was 3 falls in the last 2 years. That was the one that had like 15 people or whatever that had said something. But there was like 10 people that had serious falls. And I said, go ahead and comment on what your injury was or how serious it was. And everything from smashing their face and having a broken nose and a black eye to broken collarbones and broken arms. And me personally, in the last year, I have fallen 3 times. And one of them was a pretty bad sprains in both of my wrists, which made life difficult. Now, look, I'm not trying to say fix our sidewalks now. And I realize the data is tainted because compared to the normal downtown resident or business owner, we're on the sidewalks more and we're moving at speed. And because we're using the sidewalks possibly up to 10 times more than what the average person uses, my data just isn't legit. So I guess we're more likely to fall. But we're talking a mixture of sidewalks that some are new concrete, some are old concrete, some are brick, some are almost like cobblestone, and then the sidewalk will end and then start up again 2 houses later, which forces pedestrians to go into the street. Now, again, I'm not trying to make a big old stink, but if I fall again, do I stop running or do I just focus on running in the road? So I think sidewalks and the inconsistency of where they are forced to be or the understanding of who's responsible for it and the potential for so many falls for high users because bricks are out of place. I'm down with the whole historic thing, but I don't want to sprain my wrists anymore, and I don't want to see my friend, particularly the older people, falling and breaking arms and shoulders and breaking their noses.
Right.
So there's my beef,
Yeah.
and I know it's a part of accessibility. And by the way, I have seen that we put in ADA ramps that are great, but they immediately connect to bricks sidewalks that are just kind of a rolling mess. So I'm going to stop complaining and let you talk now.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of the concrete sidewalks are so messed up from maybe an old tree roots system or something like that that's cracked it. But could you imagine trying to get your wheelchair yourself through all of this mess? Like, just walking down the street here, some of these sidewalks, I was like, yeah, this is, there's a pretty significant crack where I was like, how would somebody navigate this? They would have to be in the road because the roads are in better condition, which I found out that 25 years ago, it was a big issue. There were tons of potholes in town and the city had to actually do something about it. And I think that's where we are right now with the sidewalks is the city is going to have to do something about this.
Well, no, I know it's probably really expensive, and it's probably going to say, well, we don't have the budget for it. And I'm like, I get it. But I know possibly people like you may come up with solutions that are outside of, and we haven't talked about this previous. She knows I'm ready to beef about sidewalks, but I just haven't done it yet. But I think it's correct me if I'm wrong, is it city council's job to find a solution when situations are dangerous?
I mean, I think this is a public safety issue.
Okay.
So I do think so.
I don't like talking out of turn, but that's what I'm asking.
That's how I feel on it. It's a public safety issue, and The way that it's set up right now is that it's the property owner's responsibility to fix the sidewalks, which, okay, people might have the money for that and might be willing to invest in that.
I had no idea. It's the property owners, the sidewalks. So that's why some houses just don't even have sidewalks, and why would they put the money down to have a sidewalk if they're not forced to have a sidewalk?
Right.
Oh.
So we now have a code compliance officer, and I'm like, okay, so this person's gonna what? Go around town and fine people or say you have so many days to fix your sidewalk or you're gonna have to pay this fine. I think that if people can't afford to fix their sidewalk and now you're adding another fine on top of that, that's not really the solution there.
No, it's not, yeah.
So I think that is a little bit of an equality issue. I mean, I know people who probably do have the money that, I'm like, oh, they seem rich, but maybe they would be able to fix their sidewalks, maybe not. It is the other issue of what you said about there are parts where there's just not a sidewalk for like 2 or 3 properties. Like going from George Street from City Hall to the police station, most of it's a sidewalk until like the last block before the police station. So you literally have to walk on the shoulder of a very busy road.
That's true.
To get to the police station if you were going to go on foot. And that's ridiculous. And that's, again, an accessibility issue and a public safety issue. You can't just assume that everyone's going to have a car.
So what about annexed neighborhoods that don't have sidewalks? Because in my mind, if I was the boss, which I'm definitely not the boss of the city, but I would say, okay, here are the rules. If you're in city, you have to have a sidewalk, right? And when you annex neighborhoods that don't have sidewalks in the plan, and I'm thinking of just a bunch of them. There's a bunch of them that just don't have sidewalks. They have driveways and then they have roads, and that's just the way they're laid out. It's hard. I guess it's hard to say, okay, look, inside of city limits, you have to have sidewalks. You can't force everybody to just get sidewalks. So the town would have to say, here's how we're going to help, or just force it.
Right. I mean, I think that the Planning Commission does have some ordinances about new developments. But yes, if you're annexing, that's a little bit different because it's already been built. So there's definitely going to have to be some tweaking of the ordinance to change
Then
that.
if I was the boss also, I think I would say, okay, then fine. If you are in the downtown district and that expands out to whatever markers are set, you've got to have sidewalks. And if you don't currently have a sidewalk, we're going to give you one. If you do have a sidewalk, you got to keep it up. If it is not, I don't want to say ADA compliant, but there are some really wacky brick sidewalks. And as nice as they are, that's great. Maybe redo them if you want to keep brick.
Right. I think this is not going to be something that if I'm elected, I'm going to be able to snap my fingers and going to get done in 6 months. This is going to be years.
I agree.
Of planning,
right,
and implementing.
Is the Planning Commission like tracking on this already? They've got to be, because people have been complaining for years.
I'm not sure how much attention they've paid to the issue, to be honest. But yeah.
So sidewalks are an accessibility issue in its physical form. You can't necessarily, if you were in a wheelchair, you can't necessarily ride the sidewalks from point A to point B, even just in downtown, due to the condition of them, or the lack of them, or whatever the case might be. So that's accessibility. What's another part of accessibility?
Well, I mean, sidewalks is a big part of that. We can also, as an option, there's the facade improvement program where if you're in the historic downtown area of Charlestown, the city's willing to put up like so much money, about a 50-50 match of so many thousands of dollars, I forget the exact amount, to help fix the front of your building or your home. And that's also how the sidewalk improvement program works as well. It's up to $5,000, I believe.
Whoa!
But
hold on.
But
Wait.
you'd still have to come up with the other $5,000, which for
So
some
it might
people
be
a
a $4,000 sidewalk, but there's a grant you can apply for. You're saying that would pay for half of it.
Right.
What do y'all think about that?
I think not many people know about that program, but also it's still out of reach for a lot of people.
Oh, I agree. Okay. All right.
So
I think we've beaten that down a little bit.
But back to that of these improvement programs, we could do another like entryway improvement program for the property and business owners,
Oh, yeah. Tell me
for
about
the
that.
stores, to make them more ADA accessible, compliant, with their doorways, with their entryways. Like we know that some of the stores in town, you walk in and then there's like steps that you immediately have to go up to get into the store part. So just things that would be an option if you want to do this, we can help you split the cost or whatever. So
That's really good. All right, cool. Is that probably it on accessibility at this time?
I think so. There's a couple things in the parks that I want to add. There's one park in town where there's a little parking lot. I forget how many spaces there are exactly, 8, 10, something like that. And there's, a handicap parking spot, and there's a little sidewalk, but then the sidewalk doesn't go anywhere. And so
Almost like an unfinished project?
Yeah, I think having a little trail to get to the main walking trail that's in that park, or at least a trail to get to the one or both park pavilions, ideally, so somebody could get, if they had a wheelchair.
So it's kind of just completing the project.
Yeah.
So it got done in budget, probably, and they did not plan on the additional part of a sidewalk because, well, look, that part got done. We'll build the rest of it later.
Right, and that might be a little project. I can't imagine that's going to be, too much.
You don't know until you know.
Right. But we're working on, the Parks Board is working on the pool, and there's a lot of things there where we want to make, there currently is like the chair to get in and out of the pool if that's what you need, but we want to do other things to make it easier to get in and out of the pool for
Well, that's got to be
everybody
a
else.
huge project.
Yeah.
I know. I own a pool, and that's my own project.
Yes.
Well, good. Do you think we've covered everything you want to talk about in this round?
I think so.
Well, good. Julie, why don't you tell us how we can learn more about you running for office, or how to learn who you are, or how to get a hold of you, stuff like that?
Yeah, so like I said, accessibility is very important. So obviously I want to be accessible to the people.
Genius.
Yes. So I'm pretty easy to find on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So Instagram and Facebook are at Julie for Charlestown, spelled out F-O-R, not the number.
Fair.
And then on Twitter, it's Julie for CTWV. So JULIEFORCTWV.
If I remember, I'll try and get those things added into the notes of this.
Mm-hmm. And then I also have an app on there that you can sign up to do a Zoom call with me. I've got like availability. So
Well, now that's accessibility. Break
Yeah.
that down some.
So it's kind of just like my office hours. That's the way I think of it. And I think that's, really important. And especially now, everybody does Zoom. So it's a great way to do face-to-face.
So if you don't know what office hours are, I didn't know until I went to college. It's when the professor is available to discuss any of your shenanigans you got to figure out. So if Julie's running for city council and you're not sure, if you think you have a concern or an issue and you're not sure or you're embarrassed to bring it up, you could probably Zoom with her and she'd be like, yeah, let's talk about that. Or no, you probably want to talk to whatever department or whatever.
Well, I mean, I'll definitely help you as much as I can, get you pointed in the right direction at the very least if I can't, solve your problem or come up with a plan that we can work together on. So yeah, that's I have the Zoom Calendly app is set up so people can just sign up for whatever date is good for them.
And you find that app where? On the Facebook page? Or?
Yeah, I have it on my Facebook page. It should be pinned to the top, so it should be like the first post you see. And I also have a Google form because I'm just asking people what are the other issues. And of course, sidewalks have come up. So I'm like, what other issues are out there that people have an issue? What else can I solve for you? Or how can we work together on this?
You don't know till you know.
Yeah.
And here's the deal, people. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. So if you want to get the sidewalks figured out, there might not be money for it. Who knows what the excuse is, but I've heard people complaining about it in town meetings. I know I'm complaining because my wrist still hurts. And, I don't want to fall. I want to walk my dog comfortably, So, well, great. Julie, I love what you're doing. I love that you're what I call boots on the ground. You've done your audit of the town. You've walked around. You've been here long enough to see that there are concerns that you can fix, or that you can work with people to get fixed or find the right solutions for. I like that you're research driven and that you have the time to invest into this, and I look forward to having you on the podcast more.
Yeah. Well, I also want to throw out my email, julieforcharlestown@gmail.com, and my phone number, 304-224-3190.
Let's say that a little slower.
304-224-3190.
And the email?
julieforcharlestown@gmail.com.
Thank you, because you rocketed that out real
I know.
fast.
But all of that, I'm pretty sure it's on my Facebook page. If you go to the About section, search Julie Philabaum for Charlestown City Council. I'll
Cool.
come up. So
Awesome. Is that it?
I think so. I don't know how else.
Well, thank you for being on the podcast.
Messenger pigeon, whatever. Flag me down when you see me walking around.
Yeah, you definitely walk around town a lot. Well, thanks for being on the podcast.
Sure. Pleasure to be here as always.
Great. Well, people, as always, this podcast is sponsored by Brackens Painting, your favorite and rated #1 in the Eastern Panhandle painting company. Commercial and residential painting, some industrial. We are licensed in both Virginia and West Virginia, and we have plenty of very high-quality staff working. So check us out at brackenspainting.com or on Facebook or whatever. We're on the internet. Thanks for listening. Today's intro and background music is written and produced by Peter Clark. The name of the song is Making Moves. Peter, the writer, told me this is the song you want to play when you're preparing dinner. Play it louder for pasta and a little bit lower volume for poultry and meats. I'm not totally sure what that means, but that's what he told me. So check him out. SoundCloud. The album's called Peter Clark After Dark.